some really interesting panels, and don't hesitate to come and say hello in the networking. Thank you very much.
James. Obviously, James mentioned moving fast and moving quickly in our industry. No one's moving faster and more quickly than OBS, and the gentleman to my left, Sotiris Salamouris from OBS. We're going to discuss how OBS innovates at the Paris Olympics, at the upcoming Milano Games. So I think we have a quick little sizzle first, so let's take a look.
The job that we do both in OBS and OCS is not so much showcasing technology, but rather using cutting-edge technology to tell even more interesting, exciting, and informative stories. The stories of the best athletes in the world.
There are expectations for new type of content, for new ways of doing things. We have a major responsibility to make our setup more and more efficient.
In a normal production unit, every device has just one function. With a virtual OBVAN instead, we try to take those functions and replace them with software that will run on one piece of hardware.
So all we need is servers, switches, some storage, and that can become whatever we want, whatever we need. Today it's doing this, tomorrow we need it for something else, we just load in the new software and it will do something else. But the underlying hardware doesn't change.
We believe that with this kind of technology, we will be able to break new grounds when it comes to how flexible it can be and how much time, space, power, overall broadcast footprint will need to be in the future games, and will allow us to enhance our efficiency at a very higher level compared to everything before.
The Olympics is a festival of emotion. So for me, being able to use techniques that cinema has developed to portray emotions better is a no-brainer.
The reason we call them cinematic cameras is that it gives it that cinematic look.
The deployment that we're working on here is the augmented reality volumetric capture studio. Athletes can come, they can do a recording of themselves, and we'll generate a 3D asset for them that's completely 360 degrees that we can use in a lot of different use cases.
In essence, this studio will provide the visual opportunity to broadcasters to integrate an athlete into their own studio, regardless of the fact that this studio will be probably thousands of kilometers away.
I've been flying FPV drones for about 10 years, and for the past 5 or 6 we've been doing cinematic shots with this. Yeah, it's really cool to know that my footage might end up going all around the world at the Olympics TV shows, what a lot of people are going to be watching worldwide, so it's a really cool feeling.
We are providing measurements like the distance in between the hosts to show how difficult it is for the athlete to jump from one point to the other. And we also show the angle so that the audience can understand how the athletes are climbing against the gravity.
Really, as an experiment here in Paris, in certain sports, we added a digital producer into the venue production team. So the idea was that that person works with the team but has access to all the cameras, sees all the feeds from all the individual cameras in the venues, and then can be looking in those cameras to see when they're not being used, if you like, on the main feed, those cameras are probably capturing some of the content that works well for social.
These games have been another further demonstration of the huge power of digital. Those are by far the most digital Olympic Games ever.
Excellent. It's a great summary, and I guess I have to start with a really big question, which is you're innovating across dozens of sports at Olympics Games. You're obviously innovating to hundreds of rights holders around the world who all have different needs. Then you're obviously taking all the signals in from the venues into your facility, producing them there, digital, the venue side of things. They showed the 360 player. I know that I think 900 athletes came out to use that because they have their own social media channels now. So it's such a big undertaking. So how do you approach holistically innovation? And do you have big meetings every month to discuss innovations?
First of all, the important thing here is to recognize that innovation is one of the two major dimensions of how we are planning for the games. I mean, one, of course, is that the expectation that there's going to be a very robust product, a product that will be flawless, of high quality. Of course, nobody will, let's say, excuse us if we start, breaking while we are, on air, etc. So there is an absolute expectation about quality and stability. But on the other hand, there is also a very strong expectation about innovation. There's also a very strong expectation that the next games will be different from the previous ones. There's an expectation that is inbuilt in the industry, of course, but there's also an expectation that goes all the way up to the end user, to the audience. So it is part of our DNA. I mean, it has been from the very beginning, and we have spent a lot of effort really to inbuild this kind of attention to innovation from the beginning. How we are doing this? Of course, there is an inbuilt attention to that. I mean, there is an expectation for innovation for each one of the teams in their own areas. A lot of that goes directly to our production team, of course, because they are controlling the visual impact of our product. And that's where also innovation is firstly experienced by, let's say, everybody, the end user, which is our final, if you like, recipient of our service. But also there is expectations of innovation in all the other steps. I mean, there's a lot of innovation that happens in workflows, which are essential for us. If we don't really have efficient workflows, then it will not be able for us to scale. And scaling and dealing with the volume and the complex of the Olympics is one of the very most important parameters that we have to consider. So each one of our teams, they know they have the mandate that they should innovate. While on the other hand, of course, they have to keep this very, very fragile balance between, let's say, stability, high quality, robustness, and then, of course, making the new happen. And this is not easy. I mean, this is actually one of the most hard things that you have to do to deliver the games. Because, of course, to innovate, it means you take risks. I mean, you adopt things that were probably very little tested. You have to do things that probably sometimes you are the first to do. And you are, of course, doing this in a global level, and you are kind of naked, in front of the global audience, and of course, all our professional partners. So, how you balance this with, of course, this expectation that this will work and will not break and will be really stable and so on? Well, it's a kind of pick and choose, and it's a kind of also what we are over the years good at doing, obviously. Because I think that we have been so far successful. And it has to do, of course, about how you are driving your innovation to areas where you know that the impact will be important, but on the same time, they don't, let's say, jeopardize your core, if you like, service delivery. So you are putting innovation there that you know that, of course, if something may not be fully controlled, still it will not break, of course, your main product. It's not a science, it's an art, of course.
So you mentioned risk and being comfortable with risk. And I know a lot of people in production may want to take a risk, but their bosses, the higher-ups, the CEOs may say, we can't afford to take a risk. We have to look perfect all the time. How do you have a culture that embraces risk and is comfortable with, I guess, failure also, potentially?
Well, that absolutely requires top-level sponsorship. I mean, this has to go from the top of the company itself. I mean, you don't expect your ground forces to be, fine with that and make this kind of decision. This has to go up from the top. It has to be assumed as a responsibility of the leadership of the company and try to induce this kind of culture, everywhere. Otherwise, it cannot work. Because in the end, risk management is the top responsibility of any company's leadership. I mean, in the end, that's where this responsibility lies. So you set up, as being on that level, on the leadership level, you set up what is the comfortable space for innovation. First of all, you make sure that innovation will be there, and you give everybody this focus that we have a responsibility to innovate. It cannot be that we can only be conservative. It's easier in smaller, probably companies, of course, because they are striving to be somewhere in their own industry, so they want to create this kind of change to appear, to grow. It's much more difficult in established systems, especially in by definition, very conservative in the sense that it is so old, also a system as the Olympics. Let's not forget that we are talking about an event, and that the event drives everything, that it is more than 120 years old. So, there are certain things there that follow traditions, that are following, of course, protocol. We have fully to respect them, but it is also known very well deeply, certainly in our organization, but also in our parent organization, which is the IOC, that unless we innovate, we'll stay behind. That was also our current president. As you know, there is now a new president coming in, but we are still under the leadership of Mr. Bach, that has said very clearly, either you change or you will be changed. So,
there you go. So I know that obviously, let's look at Milano real quick, Milano Cortina. Very complicated because of the differences between the core clusters. I mean, basically in Milan, from what I understand, looking at it, mostly like the skating events are there, and all of the other events are kind of out about 4 or 5 hours away from Milano. So how is technology going to help connect all those hubs and make sure all the signals are transported properly?
Yeah, this is not uncommon in the context of the Winter Games. Okay, in the Winter Games, very often they have, let's say, it's a big city that accommodates the ice venues, because of course in the ice venues you can pretty much make them or have them anywhere. Okay, just need a closed arena, cooling systems, and that's it. I mean, there is no problem about having ice venues even in the equator. But of course, you need snow for the snow venues, and that's what normally happens up in the mountains. So yes, that's a similar setup in Milano. It goes in the other Winter Olympic Games, where you have Milano Cortina, of course. Let's not forget the second city there, where you have the majority of the ice venues in the big city in Milano. But there is also, of course, important ice venues in Cortina, because I sometimes also forget myself, but I shouldn't. This is this is a Winter Games of 2 cities. It's Milano and Cortina. Okay, so Cortina will host also very important ice venues, like, for example, curling or sliding. So you have the 2 major hubs. But the reality when it comes to the mountain venues, they are all over essentially the north of Italy. And that's quite challenging. I mean, typically in the old games, the previous games, let's say the case for Beijing, there were 2 hubs. There was one hub downtown Beijing. There was another one up in the mountains in what we call Zhangjiakou area. That's more common. It's much easier to deal with that, because you have just only 2 locations that you can concentrate your operations. But here it's really much more difficult. And what you do? Obviously technology. I mean, that's the obvious solution. And unfortunately, now we're in a situation where we have that powerful technology that essentially can be almost agnostic where we operate. I mean, we can have the maximum possible efficiency, which means that you can have essentially any signal going to any location, and that helps ourselves as OBS, and of course that's essential for the rights holders. So we rely on a very, very sophisticated and very well-connected, interconnected system. I mean, we have a very expansive contribution, what we call contribution network, that connects everything, all the places between them. So there is no, let's say, specific technical need to be somewhere. The need that you have to be somewhere is if it really fits your production requirements. If you really need to have boots on the ground, because there are actual producers, there are your journalists, there are your talents, and they have to be there, of course, because they have to be where the action is. But we have over the years tried to remove the technical need to be there. I mean, in the old days, our technology demanded quite often that there is no way. I mean, if you want to have a live production happening in place X, you have to have all your main technical systems there, because the signals will not go further than this position. I think this is a problem now that has been solved. So you can have our signals anywhere, from anywhere to anywhere. And that's actually the way that we are dealing mostly with the Milano Cortina challenge. Of course, we cannot solve the problem about the distances when it comes to some efficiency that both ourselves and the rights holders would like to have to share their own personnel from one location to another location. You have, let's say, your commentator that may be doing 2 hours of commenting in one sport, and he can move to do something else. This is becoming very hard if you want to do it like this. This affects mostly the rights holders, but I think that both us and themselves, we have made our decisions that our people now will be more and more fixed in some locations. Okay? I mean, these kind of people that they have to really to be where the action is. And due to the technology also, the reality is that especially most of our European rights holders, they are now able, and they are doing this to have their production actually happening back home, okay, and doing their integration, production integration, where they have already their facilities.
So let's look forward to think if this works. I'm going to go back one. Go back. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to go backwards now. Can't go backwards. There we go. Wait, there we go. Okay. The virtual OB van. You mentioned curling.
Yep.
Curling in Paris, you used a virtual OB van, which is basically these racks of equipment, commercial off-the-shelf servers. So can you discuss what we're seeing here in this picture? Are there traditional broadcast hardware pieces within here, or is it all COTS and commercial off-the-shelf?
It's all COTS. And that was actually the idea behind the VOB, what we call Video OB van, which is just one of these implementations about what we call software-defined broadcasting, or let's say just using visualization technology to implement all our live broadcast workflows or our live production workflows. First of all, this is not a technology that we as OBS want to internalize. It's not something that OBS decides that we're going to do that internally within our own capacity. We don't need to, and this is not also our approach. Our approach is when it comes to live coverage, when it comes to the systems that are implementing the live coverage of the event, that we are expecting our partners, service providers, to undertake them. Okay. They have the expertise, they have not just, if you like, the back-end equipment, like the things that you need, let's say, to do the live broadcast, like vision mixers, audio mixers, multi-viewers, replay systems, etc. But they have also the front cameras, they have all the peripherals that is necessary, and they have also the skills and the people, etc. So this is not something OBS is doing. OBS has a huge capacity by itself. It has a huge inventory of systems that are taking over once the live production is happening. Okay. Taking all the signals, within our own cores, and then we are converting them, we are storing them, we are repurposing them, we're doing many, many things, and then, of course, we are delivering this to the rights holders, again, in many different ways. So this is a technology, this is expectation from our partners. And this is the message that we pass to them, because we are doing this transition internally ourselves. We are fully virtualizing and, let's say, following this infrastructure as a code, if you like, or as a service approach for our own systems. And we have a roadmap that from now till 2030, all our more than 400 racks, heavy, if you like, systems that we have in our own possession will be converted to be based on infrastructure as a service, virtualized, let's say, systems, or cloud-like, if you like, private cloud-like systems. Okay, so this is what we're doing internally, and we are doing this for many reasons. Okay, so we wanted to be certain that this somehow also the same benefits that we expect from the things that we are doing internally also is happening by our service providers. And we are push this message to them because it works for us. It's a very, very important technology that will help us deal with the scaling problem. The scale of the Olympics is that unless you have really solutions out for the market that also scale well, you will reach certain limits, and you will eventually, if you project them on time, you may even fail in the future. So we have a responsibility in our level, in our volume, to push our partners to follow technologies that we believe that will be able to scale in the way that works for us. And also, we believe that this is really the most future-proof plan that you can have for your own systems. Okay.
So I guess one of the classic beliefs in buying equipment is that if you buy it, you have to amortize it over 6 to 7 years. So for you, if you did that for the Olympics, that means you're going to use that same technology for 3 years. But with this philosophy, you can upgrade much more easily, and as opposed to being stuck with.
What lies behind that is the fact that finally, because we now move from and we leave behind us all our bespoke or legacy technology that we have been developing as an industry or as a special, if you like, group like broadcasters or broadcasting for the last 70 years, started in the early 40s. Now we're leaving all this behind, and we are just becoming one more case of IT technology. Okay. That may be a bit worrying for some, but I think it's an area full of opportunities because there is so much technology out there that is being done by other people and we can benefit from instead of just delivering this internally ourselves. So by getting to this position, we are actually start re-upping some kind of these advantages. A big part of this advantage is that you fully, and that's what IT has managed, we can fully separate hardware from software. Okay, that's essential. And the separation is so powerful, and this is what happens today in the cloud systems. It's so powerful that to give you an idea how, can create some kind of, let's say, interesting attention to us in our industry. Can you imagine, that, for example, that you are producing live, let's say, the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games or the finals of the World Cup, while people on the backup on your track, They're just totally changing your hardware, moving, systems, putting in other systems while you are on air and doing that. That sounds crazy, but this is what currently happens any single moment in the cloud. Any single moment you have extremely, extremely important services, very, very valuable, very sensitive, running the financial, let's say, systems of the world, the military systems of the world, the government of the world, and, and people that are running these applications, they, are happy going around and, seeing that everything works fine, whereas some other people with no connection between them, they are totally changing every single day their hardware. Okay? And this works so well that nobody notices. So this is the kind of power that exists in this kind of approach, if you like. And this is what also waits for us in the future.
And you said last night over dinner, you have a very unique use case in that you don't need your production facilities to be on wheels. So you're not saying if you were on wheels and had to move from point A to point B, you probably would have no problem with traditional.
No, we have no problem about anything. I mean, in the end, as a host broadcaster, we are looking for the service. I want a live broadcast of a certain type of capacity, quality, size, etc., etc. And I will use anything that works on that. I have no problem with a standard HDI track, 12G, whatever. I mean, as long as it does what I want. The problem, however, is that if we multiply this to 80 galleries, which is what we need, concurrent galleries that we need to do, for example, the LA Games, you realize that, first of all, there are not enough tracks in the world, period, or there are even less tracks in the world today than there were 10 years ago, for all the reasons that I think everybody understands. And, and if I just expect that this will happen with tracks, which, by the way, I don't necessarily need track because I don't move, systems from one day to the other day. In the Olympics, you park something, for a whole month, and then after this month, you take it out. So it's not that I die for a track. I die for the facility, okay? And this can be either a track or a flyway system or a new generation flyway system, a flyway system as it should be, which is, if you like, the VOB option.
Sure. So these are just some pictures that I took of the people working in the control room. So was there any feedback from them as far as, did it feel any different than?
Yes, the feedback was that there is no feedback. It means that for them it was totally transparent. I mean, they had no clue. Actually, when we told them, they were kind of surprised that there is something totally different running behind them doing the same thing. So there was no visual mixer frame, there was no audio mixer frame, there was no replay systems as you know them, there was just servers, and that's it. Okay, and it was, they went there. And the thing about that is not that it's a flyway, No, it's a very different flyway in all these concepts that I said. And first of all, it is 1/3 of the size of the more traditional, if you like, flyway system. So we do use flyway systems of legacy technology, or if you like, IT 1.0, which is, IT systems, but with a lot of IT or broadcast appliances there. We do use them. But when we converted this option to what you said, the infrastructure as a service or a VOB option, then suddenly we had 1/3 of the rack space.
Yeah, because these racks supported three galleries.
This is 3 galleries rack. That's it. Okay.
Now, how do you think, obviously, these servers over 2-4 years get more powerful and more efficient? So how much more do you think this fly pack will shrink by the time we get to 2028, say, for example? You think it'll be?
There is, for that particular same workflow could easily be half of that. Okay. The question is, will this mean that it will be really half of that? I would say no, because our also workflows are not staying the same. I mean, we are ambitious. I mean, now we are in full UHD HDR. This is the Olympic standard, so all our native production is 4K, right? But what will be the case? Okay, in LA probably will be like that, but what will be the case beyond LA, etc.? Who knows? I mean, there is all sorts of expectations about what our live production will happen. I mean, there is a lot of things already happening with of course, AI. So what will be need to run there? It's a question. But that's why also this is very important, because from a certain point onward, I don't care about what's going to be, let's say, the actual software running this. It will be about sizing my hardware to deal with this software.
So how do you think manufacturers who are creating the tools that you want to use, I mean, you had a bunch of them who worked hard with you on this project. Were there interoperability problems? What are some of those challenges that they face trying to make this transition?
Okay, I would say I'm very, very blunt and honest, reluctantly in the beginning, but now I think all of them realize that there is no other way. Okay, because of course,
there is a very, very established business approach, okay, for a long, long time. And all the manufacturers have, if you like, adopted themselves to work within that business model, which is I am bundling, if you like, my IP, my intellectual property, my research costs, all these kinds of things in a piece of hardware. And when I'm selling this piece of hardware, everything is that in that price, okay? And of course, that was very convenient because also the customers were used to that. Everybody was used to that. So when I'm buying, let's say, a server from company X that is doing replace, okay, and I'm paying 150,000 euros, okay, I understand that I'm not buying the metal, okay? I'm buying both the metal, but also the work behind the metal. So now that you need to separate business hardware and software, the whole business model needs to change. And this is not easy, okay? All manufacturers have concerns about that. But on the other hand, I don't think there is any other way. I mean, I don't think that there is a way to go back. I mean, so it's something that it will happen. And I think, in my opinion, the faster that the manufacturers are somehow getting to this new world, the easier for them to be to adapt. And I think that's also what they realize. So in the end, we have all the standard, if you like, service providers, because in the end it becomes a service provision. You know, companies that are providing the vision mixer function, or let's say the audio mixer function, or the multi-viewer function, or the replay function. They realize that this is where they're going. They have to do it, and they have to start splitting now software and hardware. By the way, this does not mean that the appliances are going away. Okay? This does not mean that for a big number of people, or smaller companies, or whatever companies, it will still be sensible for them to buy one package solution that has everything there. So you'll buy a box. I don't want to know anything more. I don't have the capacity to deal with visualization or cloud or anything like that. So that's fine for me. I buy the vision mixer box, and that's vision mixing and something else. Of course, you know that in that box, there is eventually just a Linux server running software. But for them, it's fine. So the appliances will stay. But for big operations like our own, this is a very inflexible way.
Now, I know we have a video on AI and generative AI, so let's look at that, because that is one of the hottest topics out there. And then we'll talk about that for a couple minutes, too.
Voices calling, longing for your dirty souls, the wolves are hauling. Can you hear the voices calling? Welcome to the other side.
Awesome. All right, so we have 2 minutes left. So we should discuss the men's 100-meter final, because that shot there, it was amazing how you were able to take all of that data and the IOC, obviously, and show and visualize who won, because that was as close as a race could get.
You know, I think if that happened, I don't know, a few years ago, that race will be considered to be a tie. I mean, we only have the technology to go and differentiate and see really who was the winner very, very recently. This kind of accuracy and this kind of data that is driving this kind of accuracy. Yeah, I mean, 100 meters was amazing, okay, in all aspects. And this also gives you the interesting thing about that. We have all these tools now, have all these visual tools that are available. They are predominantly based on AI, and we can talk about that. But I think the key important thing here is all of these tools always need to be focused to serve one action, and this is about storytelling. Okay, this is tools to tell the story about what happened in an impactful way, in an understandable way, in a scalable way. In our case, we have the problem of making this storytelling for sports that are not so much known. So there is a lot of gap to be closed, if you like, between what is the average understanding of the audience and what needs to be told about, closing this gap. And fortunately, we have now all these technologies that are helping us more and more. okay, AI, it's in everybody's mouth, I mean, recently and for a reason. There are many things that are happening on AI when it comes to us. Currently, we have more than 38, I think, projects, parallel projects running on AI. But you could just say that they could be grouped in two different categories. One is AI that is used directly to impact our visual product, where we can use AI to enhance, if you like, the visuals, the videos, what's actually going on the field of play. For example, you saw the stroboscopic effect. You saw the multi-camera replay systems. All of them are based on AI because what they do and what only AI can do was very effectively and very fast. They separate the front subject, which is the athlete, with everything else that happens there. Okay, and only if you do this separation, you can do dissection, you can freeze in a certain way, you can go and see other angles, you can measure, and you can all these kind of things. So it's a very, very essential technology that now is available. And the important thing about that, it's available with very short turnaround time. Because, okay, you could claim the technology was here a few years ago, but they had turnaround times which are actually impractical for live, if you like, coverage. It was good for post-production, for analysis, but not really to use them as part of the replays. Now we do have that. And where it is useful, exactly what I said. I mean, to even democratize more about sports understanding globally, especially in the sports that people don't necessarily know. And this, again, part of what the Olympics are doing, and also part of our, of course, responsibility, and I think also part of the beauty. One interesting metric about the Olympics is that the typical Olympic fan, I mean, during the Games, watches 4 sports. Okay, and they are driven to sports that didn't really know about that. So that's where we're using these kind of technologies to enhance this kind of storytelling.
Excellent. Well, I hope next year we can discuss those technologies in deeper. But I appreciate your time, as always, Sotiris. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks, everybody, for joining us as well.
Thank you for having me.
With OBS and OCS, working in the coverage and digital engagement of the biggest sporting event, it's inevitable that we currently look into the possibilities of technology.
We have innovations in many fronts. Some of them have to do with the visual experience of the final user, so how we project all this data that we have. In that sense, AI is also helping us. So we have introduced a multicam replay where we do the effect of a frozen moment in time and we move around it. We are also doing stroboscopic replays, especially very useful on sports like gymnastics. We have some metrics for serve reaction time in tennis, which gives how fast a tennis player reacts when they are about to receive a serve.
For table tennis, we are introducing the new technology, the AI camera. The sticker actually is to capture the movement of the ball, and then we can see actually from the scene that you can see the thread of the ball appear on the image, and also we can see the spin of the ball. So that's really a new thing that come up for this Olympic Games. So everyone's super excited about that.
We record the heartbeat of the athletes for archery, and we're the only sport in the Olympics doing it. Typically, the third arrow, the heart rate will go up. So then you see the stress level of the athletes. It's just filming a small part of the face, and that allows them to capture the heart rate. Then, okay, well, the rest is algorithms and probably some AI, and that produces then the heart rate.
The other new thing that we're also introducing for Paris 24 is some augmented graphics, so graphics that tell us things like how high the divers jumped off a dive board, how fast they're travelling when they hit the water, a bit of extra information for the viewer at home to get a sense of exactly what's going on when the diver performs their dive.
We have introduced what we call the object tracking, very useful in a cycling road, rowing, sailing, where we pinpoint the individual athletes in a situation where normally you wouldn't be able to identify them that well, with some tags, some labels that are marking you who is who, and you can have a better idea of what's going on the race. Some of the things that we are doing as well is automatically generated content from the data and the streams that we are using in order to create faster highlights. So we combine very strong data that is coming from the organizing committee as well as the data that our loggers are introducing, combined with our video feeds, and artificial intelligence can understand what's going on and can offer a set of rough cuts or even highlights as a final product that can be even directly published into social media as a vertical format, a square format, horizontal format.
AI gives you the ability to do that at scale because it can automate this content creation. It can create this kind of highlights in a manner that doesn't require human intervention, apart from some high-level parameters that can be given to the AI platform in order to create this content automatically. We are using AI to allow for a much higher customization of our content that would be possible if we were just using human editors or producers and so on.